All right, I'll say, how are you all this evening of your time as you create time to exist? Are you all alive? Oh, thank you very much. Allow me to begin this interaction with the following entitlement. It is that simple. Understand, your particular society has within it a notion that many individuals choose to buy into, sometimes consciously, other times unconsciously. But either way, it is the notion that change is a laborious process, that in fact you must create or participate or find or attract an elaborate process in order to realize change in your life. Now, needless to say, this works and it is in that sense a true reality, but it is not the only true reality. For whatever it is that you truly believe then sets up within you particular feelings or emotions, particular thoughts. That is the prism that comprises your personality, beliefs, emotions, and thoughts. And with that premise, with those beliefs, emotions, and thoughts, you then act. And those actions are the actions that create your life. So therefore, whatever you believe, then by extension, you then therefore act that way. And that in and of itself is what midwifes the physical reality to conform in that sense to your truest beliefs. So therefore, if you believe in the need for a process, then you in that sense can create that process, go through that process, and perhaps then allow yourself to change. And that is one way to change. Though we detect that this takes quite a bit of time. And one of the, shall we say, concerns of members of your society now beginning to view the idea of changing to a preferred you, prefer it to happen a bit more quickly. So therefore, allow us to share with you a few simple ideas about becoming in the moment the thing that you prefer. Allow us to first remind you that you are all perfect creators. And in fact, in that sense, you can perhaps say that you cannot help but create. You always create. It is, as you say, automatic. So therefore, being a creator is simply the way you are. And it is not something you need muster up. Perhaps the creations in that sense that you have, shall we say, experienced have not always been according to preference. And this is what we are discussing, beginning to create your reality according to preference. But when we say you're perfect creators, we mean it. So therefore, even when you do create the idea of misery, it is perfect misery. And we understand this. Therefore, allow us to remind you of the following idea. You can only ever exist. You can only ever experience the now moment. Anytime you ever perceive that you experience, it is always right here and right now. Perhaps you can say that's the only time and place, or place and time, that there are. Therefore, even when you speak of the past, speak of the future, you are creating in that sense that past and future in the now moment, not actually going back to someplace or forward, but in that now moment, creating the notion of a past, of a future. Because the now moment is the only moment you actually exist within, you can always create anything right now. More mechanically speaking, understand that though you perceive your reality to be a continuum, continuous, perhaps you can say that each now moment is a complete event, and you create the seemingness of now moments in succession. And this creates the illusion of continuity. But in a more literal mechanical sense, each now moment is a complete package, a complete statement. And when you change something in the now moment, it all changes until you perhaps recreate a now moment with some old definitions. Then you bring back the old definitions into that moment. But because you always do create from the present, from the now moment, that shows you in no uncertain terms that that now moment is always your ultimate point of power. Now understand, when individuals do change or make a decision to change, as you say, if they create a process, what they are doing in that sense is only allowing themselves to validate the change when first fulfilling a particular set of criteria. So in other words, they could change in the now moment, but they will not grant themselves that change. They perhaps have been taught that you need to earn or you need to create that change in a series of steps, which is one way, one truth, one possibility. However, you can simply make the decision in the now moment to change. Just decide to change in that moment. Decide who it is you wish to be. Use your imagination, which is a tool, to see yourself being that you. Your imagination will always provide what you would do if you were that way, so to speak. So therefore, it will always provide a blueprint or a template once you plug in the reality that you wish to participate in. The new preferred you, perhaps you can say, can easily be conjured up in your imagination. And you can state the new beliefs and watch the new you in your imagination proceed according to the new beliefs. So therefore, step one is to decide to change, to recognize that it is your option, being that the only constant in creation is change. It is always your option to allow that change in any given moment, for you never force things to change. The only forcing in that sense results in things seeming to stay the same. So allowance is the mechanism for change, to allow the natural change that already exists within your reality. So first decide who it is you wish to be, acknowledging who you already are. Now, here is how you can simply proceed from the moment that you decide to do so forward and create that change immediately. Once you have decided to change, step two is to trust that you have changed. And therefore, when things come into your awareness that seem like the same old thing, allow yourself to now at least look at the alternative that if I am seeing it as the same old thing, that is the old me looking at it. So therefore, all right, we now see how the old me would handle it, and perhaps do not prefer how the old me would handle it. Let's put that aside for now. Let's again recreate the preferential you in your imagination. And when you do, hand that situation over to the new preferred you and see what it will do. The very simple last step is so simple, I ask that you perk your ears up, for you might miss it. It is to simply then act that way. Act as though the new you in your imagination, the mold, the blueprint, the template that you have set up, acts. It is very simple. To break it all down, you simply decide how it is you wish to be and decide you are now that person. Secondly, you trust that you have changed by, if evidence comes in seeming to the contrary, giving yourself the opportunity to at least give yourself the new approach, to at least decide if you'd rather do the old thing or the new thing. And shall we say in general, it will be quite simple to simply choose the new now that you know you have a new option. But the last step, acting that way, acting as though you trust you have changed, is the actual, shall we say, grounding of these ideas into your life, into your physical reality. For it is always ultimately your actions that create your reality. So perhaps you can say that this is one way to begin to view the alternatives of how to act in a positive way, the alternatives of the new preferred you. And if you allow it to be, and again, it will always be a matter of your allowance, it is that simple. That is all there is to it. This is how you already create your reality. However, you do so somewhat, again, using your term, automatically. But this does not mean that at any given moment, you cannot now choose to not be on automatic pilot, and to always give yourself at least one other alternative before performing an action that most obviously will not yield the result you say you desire. Your imagination, again, though it is used in general as fantasy in your society, is a very specific tool. It is tuned to you. It is tuned to the vibration of who you are. Therefore, in the moment that you picture anything, you are that thing in that moment. If you picture the new preferred you and feel, as you say, positive about it, you only feel that because at least in that moment, you are that vibration. Now, you will always have the choice to become the old non-preferred vibration right away. So nothing is ever lost. And you will always have the option to be the old you. That is not lost. Perhaps you can say there will be some reminders as you move forward of the old you, just in case you wish to be that old you. But it will always be your choice to continue to be the new preferred you. For it is not really ever the old you are viewing. For you now have the knowledge, the new resources. So that is what is different, even if it feels like the old you from the quote-unquote actual old you. You always carry around with you this toolbox. It is not something that you lose. It is not something you leave home. It is not something that disappears with the rest of the socks in your laundry. No. You automatically always have your own built-in, preferential you. Again, when you conjure up an idea and feel it, in that moment, you are that idea. Therefore, you can always then decide to continue to be that idea. Or you can, in that sense, choose to be the older version of who you are. Is this clear? Oh, all right. Before we proceed to the interaction, allow me to thank you all and send our unconditional love and appreciation to you for your willingness to interact and expand the definition of who you are. You literally create your own reality. You do not exist within a reality. The reality exists within you. And the paradox, perhaps you can say from your perspective, is that this is also true for all other individuals. This is the multidimensional nature of creation itself. For all that is just that. All that is, with absolutely nothing left out. Therefore, you are literally the eyes of God, or all that is, the hands, the tools, expressions, facets, sparks of the white light of infinite creation itself. And as you do expand your consciousness, very much like awakening from what you call your nighttime dream, you always then come to the realization, experientially, that the reality that you formerly believed you existed within, exists within you. Again, as you awaken from your nighttime dream, perhaps you have experienced that particular feeling. Well, I thought it was quite real at the time, but obviously it was all in me. And this is the same or a similar recognition that you have when you, as you say, translate, or as you sometimes call it, die. For you are dreaming right now. And it is just that this dream has a slightly different definition from your nighttime sleeping dream. But as you begin to realize who you are in the moment, in this waking dream, you begin to dissolve the line between your daytime and nighttime sleeping dream. You begin to access all that you are. For you can only access all that you are in the now moment. Again, you create the past and you create the future only from the present. And therefore, though A may seem to lead to B, may seem to lead to C, once you are at C, A and B have no effect on C. The present is not a result experientially of the past. The moment that you say that it is, then you experience that reality. But it is not, shall we say, automatically, inherently that way. Only when you assign it. And your reality is a matter of your assignment. For very literally, all situations, all events in your life are a neutral set of props with no built-in meaning. You provide the meaning, and the meaning that you provide determines the effect you get out. Therefore, if you again assign a negative meaning, then you will perceive a negative effect. But this is also so if you are willing to assign a positive meaning. Not to say or deny that you had the initial negative interpretation, but again, because all situations are, in a sense, neutral and contain as much potential for negative or positive experience, you always also have the opportunity to review any given situation from the perspective, after you have perhaps labeled it a bummer, from the perspective of how it serves you in exactly the way that it is presenting itself. And if you believe, truly believe that you create your own reality, that is how an owner acts. If you believe that you create your own reality 100%, then you understand that everything within your reality is your creation. Maybe some of those things are from unconscious beliefs, and therefore those are the things that perhaps you ask, well, why would I create that? But understand that understanding and acknowledging that you created all, by extension, has you assuming a certain attitude. And that is, as we have sometimes called it, the attitude of an owner of your reality. Once you cease to assume that anything in your life is extraneous or extra, then you are acting like an owner. An owner understands they have created it all, may not immediately understand the reason for creating a particular symbol. But the moment you look at a symbol that you do not understand why you created from the perspective that I have created this, obviously on some level I know what I'm doing, therefore I will allow myself to glean service from it. I will allow myself to see how this serves me exactly the way it is. And when you allow it to deliver as equal a positive message, then you can get the positive effect. This is why you can be aware of positivity and negativity, but only experience all positivity. For what you experience is determined, again, by your interpretation of a particular neutral symbol or event, the attitude that you then assume from that interpretation, and then again, it all boils down to ultimately the actions that you perform with that as a premise. So that is what creates the effect being positive or negative. So it is all right. It is perfectly well and good to explore why you would interpret something as negative. And again, being aware of negativity in and of itself is simply expanding your knowledge base. But we, in that sense, would advise that before you act, when you interpret something in a negative way, that you at least give yourself the benefit to look at how it serves you and what is positive about it. For if you assume that attitude, your actions will differ from the actions you would, in that sense, participate in if you had a negative interpretation. And this is more mechanically what winds up creating the experience as positive or negative. Is that clear? Therefore, perhaps you can say, page 1 of the owner's manual of creating your reality would simply be to always use all your creations. For your creations are but symbolic messages that you are delivering to yourself in physical terms. And once you allow any symbol to deliver the message you created it to deliver, then it transforms, then it changes, then it needs not hang around. But when you perceive something is negatively reoccurring in your life, first of all, allow us to say it is always anew, and only your definition that here it comes again, and you then make that particular relationship. But you always have the ability in any given moment to not do that and to simply decide consciously to use it in a positive way and act that way. So therefore, to capsulize, right now, simply picturing who it is you wish to be and deciding to be that person, trusting that you have indeed changed, and then acting as though you trust that you have indeed changed is all it takes to immediately and completely transform the vibration of who you are. Again, you may check in at first with the referential, preferential you in your imagination, but it will become so secondhand, so automatic, so quickly, that will, shall we say, only be, at first, a particular step that will then be automatic. For when you picture that you, when you feel that you in your imagination, you are that you. And if you then continue to act like that you, then you continue to be that you. And it is only your particular decision, perhaps not understanding that you had any other choice, to go back to the old ways, to validate the change from your older belief systems, allowing evidence of the older you to, so to speak, overwhelm the evidence of the newer you that seems to then set you back. But you always have the option to view the evidence through the new you by trusting that you have changed and approaching it as though you have changed. Therefore, allow us now to open up this action to an interaction. And I ask you now, how may I be of service to you? Shedding.
Elan, greetings.
And to you, good day.
Where are you tonight?
I am upon my scout craft, orbiting my home planet of Essassani.
That takes away Tony's question. He's here, I think.
Oh, all right. We are sure he will find another one. And remember that questions are only answers that you already have that are put outside of you to perhaps get some outer validation. So you always already contain the answer.
At my brother's request, I was going to ask you to elaborate on the idea that all situations or circumstances are strictly neutral and have no inherent meaning. And somehow or other, you beat me to the punch with your statement, your opening statement, which was very helpful. Thank you very much.
Now, one other thing, allow me to add. We only use the symbol of neutrality to perhaps break or stop the usual momentum individuals have to label things negative. But we are not suggesting to leave it neutral. What allows it to serve you in a positive way is to go the next step to glean how it actually serves you. So therefore, ultimately, you are, shall we say, focusing on what is positive about it. Do proceed.
Well, roughly 5 years ago, my brother's wife, who at that time was only 57 years old, died of cancer rather unexpectedly. And she had been pretty much taking care of the day-to-day needs of their handicapped daughter. And so he suddenly found himself in what he and society would say, oh, that's really bad. That's really unfortunate. What a shame. And of course, he's been dealing with that as responsibly as he could ever since then. So when he sees things like that and experiences them, it's very difficult for him to put into action the philosophy that you've been putting forth here tonight.
Well, if you say so, that will be up to him. But it is always an option in any given moment and perhaps the actual utilization of it, rather than mentalizing what would happen, you will find that this is quite usable, quite workable in any given moment, for simply reminding yourself, all right. All situations are neutral, meaning they contain equal potential for negative and positive. Obviously, the positive is overwhelmingly, or the negative interpretation is overwhelmingly obvious in this case. But I shall now be a bit more creative. I shall now look at any little minute particle of this situation that serves me, and then move on. It's very simple.
Okay, coming off the idea that we create our own reality, he also has a very tough time imagining that he would create such a problem and severe situation that he's been living with, that he would do that to himself.
Well, thank you very much. For again, we have said, you create your reality, and perhaps from this moment forward, you will do so only consciously. But up till this point in your life, you have created your beliefs in two ways. Consciously, which means perhaps that you were given a set of choices and chose one, and this is how I shall be. That was your conscious choice. But there are the other set of choices in your life, shall we say, that your society presents to you as the only way. These beliefs are then taken, quote unquote, on faith by you, and therefore, in a sense, you can say were bought into unconsciously. But from our perspective, there is not only one that's the way it is. All belief systems have within them their own self-sustaining, self-perpetuating system of logic, system of evidence. So because that really means that believing is seeing, you will always create the evidence of your belief system that makes it seem like that's the only way. But what we are speaking of is to allow these beliefs to come to the conscious surface. Once you know you have a belief that you don't wish to have, therefore bought into unconsciously, but it is having quite a blatant effect in your life, that is the first step toward changing it. And we have shared many times the way to change a belief. Do you understand the distinction?
Yes.
So therefore,
Yes,
the things in your life that perhaps feel that they do not belong are no less your creations, but perhaps the result of a more unconsciously bought into set of beliefs. As you simply have that idea and move through your reality, you can trace down, you can nail down, you can fish out, if you wish, these unconsciously bought into beliefs in the following way. As we had started this interaction by saying, your personality is comprised, in a sense, by belief, emotion, and mentality or thought. And one leads to the other. Perhaps you were not taught this in your society. It is no less true. What this means is that when you have a belief, you generate feelings of having that belief. So you do not just feel that way and that's the way it is. You can experience that. But if you feel that way, you can always say, what must I believe to feel that? And when you come up with what the belief is, 9 out of 10 times, if it created a negative emotionality, it was an unpreferred belief unconsciously bought into. Now, step one again for changing a belief is always to acknowledge the belief that you had. Allow yourself to see how it has allowed you to feel, how it has allowed you to think, and how you have acted like you have had that belief. That acknowledgement equalizes it to all other beliefs. To then change the belief, you then state with conviction, after perhaps having blanked your mind, the new belief. With enough, shall we say, intensity, until you actually feel what it would feel like to have that belief. When you do that, this is where your imagination comes in quite handy. For now that you have stated the new belief, perhaps out loud, as a conscious commandment to the universe, allowed yourself to see how that allows you to feel, that feeling will be different from the negative feeling. It will feel good, as you say, as we would choose to say, positive. You will then think different thoughts. And when you plug in the imaginary you, having evoked those feelings, that is what imbues it to begin to now think and act like the person with that belief. That sets up the blueprint. You are now acting like the new you, having acknowledged the old belief. By the way, if you act like the new you without acknowledging the new belief, that holds the old belief. That holds the old belief in place. That is denial. We are not speaking of that. We are speaking about acknowledging the old belief, seeing how it allows you to feel, think, and act, invoking the new belief, seeing how that allows you to feel, think, and act, and comparing them, understanding that they are absolutely equal. And by acknowledging that old belief, you do equalize it to the new belief. By denying it, you give it more attention, more weight, and more of a tendency to choose it out of feeling that it is the only choice. So therefore, it is quite easy to change those beliefs once you make them conscious. For the moment you acknowledge them, they are no longer unconscious. And again, perhaps because they have been unconscious at first, when they come to the forefront of your mind, you'll say, oh yes, I do believe that. Didn't realize it, but I do. It feels like I believe that. Well, that certainly does not serve me. Now I will look at my other options.
Good. That's helpful. I'm reminded of you and Bashar have often said that there are no accidents in the universe. And so
there are things that are interpreted as accidental, but everything that happens by definition belongs. Again, there are no extraneous creations.
Because somehow that at times means to me that, well, something is causing, let's say, my brother's wife to die and so forth and so forth. And I say then, is that him creating that reality?
It is a co-created reality, but perhaps you can say the time of death was more created from her end, for you literally do create the time of your birth and death.
Okay. Now, where is the oversoul in this cause and effect situation?
Whose?
The oversoul.
The oversoul of whom?
My brother, let's say. Is his oversoul producing these situations for him to deal with and learn from?
Well, in a sense, you can say the oversoul sets up the entire overall categories to be viewed, but it is the physical self, the free will of the physical self, that always gets the option to experience whatever the higher self or oversoul chooses to experience in positive or negative terms. So therefore, no matter what the chosen overall category of experience is, you can always experience all of it once you know that in a positive way. So perhaps you can say, overall, the agreement between his oversoul and the oversoul of his wife are in a certain agreement, but it is his physical self and the choices of interpreting, assuming an attitude and acting from that interpretation in this life that gives the effects that he may be calling negative. Is that clear?
Yes, I think all this will be very helpful to him. I wish he were here to ask his own questions, but I'm doing the best I can by proxy.
Well, do understand again that there are no accidents, so therefore he will hear it in exactly the way that will be of most service to him. But we thank you.
Just a real quickie. Several days ago, I made the decision that I'm going to go to the Egypt channeling session late November and into December.
Have a good trip.
Thank you. And I just wanted to give you the opportunity to say, well, gee, the pyramids could offer this sort of a growth opportunity to me or anybody attending.
Well, again, understand that they are a particular style of lens that literally focuses the electromagnetic energy of your planet. But again, more specifically, that particular tool or symbol was initially created for, shall we say, the conducive atmosphere for particular consciousness explorations. So in a sense, you can say an elaborate meditation chamber. So therefore, the energies of that area will be very conducive, but no less will be the congregation of individuals that are choosing to explore at the same time. And there is, shall we say, a high degree of opportunity for many doors to be opened within individuals in that type of a situation. But that is no less available to anyone else in every now moment of their given life.
Wonderful. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much. I'll yield to Sheila.
And we thank you.
Hi, Elan.
Greetings.
Good to see you.
Good to sense you as well.
I wanted to thank you for your help with my tennis.
We thank you for anything that we do is merely reflect back to you what you already know. But in this case, you used it, and we thank you.
Yeah, I used it and it worked. I took a...
Are you now having a good time losing?
Yeah, that's exactly... Boy, you remember well.
Oh,
that's exactly it. That's exactly it. I'm still losing, but I'm having fun. And I'm not invalidating what I'm doing. I'm not blaming anyone or anything. And I'm staying positive. And you told me to take a time out when I needed it. And that's what I'm doing, and it's working beautifully.
Well, you may find the need for that will decrease, but at first, it goes much with what we said at the beginning of this interaction. It is merely giving yourself any other alternative. For if you are projecting that alternative from your preferred point of view, what you come up with will always be more preferable to what you are about to do. So then it is no large effort to change your actions. Simply you see a more attractive option. It is that much more effortless to simply do that thing.
And every time you have success with something like this, I find I can use it in other parts of my life.
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, maybe more so.
Yeah. This afternoon, my husband took a nap, and he came downstairs, and he was laughing. He said, I had a dream that our neighbor and two policemen were out in front stealing our float boat, our pontoon boat. And he spoke to our neighbor, and the neighbor said, hi, how are you? And then drove away with the float boat. And my husband spoke to one of the policemen and said, why is he taking the float boat? And the policeman said, the guy said it was his. And Bob said, no, it's mine. I have the papers to prove it. And then he woke up. And I had been listening to the tape of the last session about dreams. And I said to him, well, you were having a parallel, you were experiencing a parallel life with another aspect of your same self, with the same people, but different circumstances, different histories, and similar relationships. And he looked at me, got the weirdest look on his face, and he said, are you talking to me in Greek? And I realized that I better change the subject fast, which I did.
Well, perhaps he was simply exploring in the dream reality what floats his boat. But again, there was the assertion from his point of view of who he was in that given situation, which from our perspective is quite positive.
Well, he looked at me as if I were off the wall, and I'm wondering if I was. Or his reaction was really funny. He didn't like what he heard. I think it confused him, and it sounded like I was off in space somewhere.
Well, understand whatever you have to say is merely a gift, and it will always be his option to return it to the store.
Yeah, he returned that one in a hurry.
'Tis all right, but understand that when it rings with him, then that will be what is more appropriate for him. So rather than berate yourself and judge yourself for being of assistance, simply perhaps you can render a few other options for some of the other interpretations that we have shared about these things.
It struck me very funny.
And him.
But I didn't misinterpret the last session, did I? Was that accurate?
Ace.
It was. Okay. One other thing is, yesterday I had a phone call from a woman who is a nurse. Well, she's a health aide, actually. And she's in Christian Science now, and she's heard a lot about me and my nursing. And she wanted to know if we could support each other in helping people. And she was working at a hospital as a nutritionist. And as the conversation went on, I found out she was Black. And she began to tell me about what racism is all about and her viewpoint of Christian Science. And she was very interested in how I felt about Christian Science and how I feel about it now and the concepts I use and love now. And she couldn't hear enough of it. And at one point I said to her that I had had lifetimes as a Black person and she had had lifetimes as a white person. And she had no trouble with an idea like that. And she said, yeah, that makes sense to me. I knew I was going through this experience for some good reason.
Now you are both speaking like an owner.
Yeah, it was really exciting. I really look forward to meeting her.
Well, do understand that again, you only attract the reality that you are the vibration of.
Yeah.
So therefore you can assume that you are attracting an individual who will reflect back to you many of the ideas that you are exploring.
Yeah.
This is why when you decide consciously to change who you are, that literally changes the vibration of who you are, and then changes how you will interact with your environment and what it is you will allow yourself to attract. So when you decide to be the new you, trust in that, act that way, you then draw from the universe, who already provides you every single bit of abundance you need to continue to be the you define yourself to be in any given moment. That when you expand that definition, then shall we say, so does the universe expand its definition of what is necessary to support the new you.
Well, I really love how my life is going, and
Oh, thank you.
I appreciate your help so much.
All right. But again, we appreciate
Yeah,
your willingness to put into action what it is that we share, for we can never prove anything that we are saying. Only can you prove it by the doing. And it is not even our intention to wish to prove it. For right now, it does not serve our purposes to convince you that we are who we say we are. We are more concerned, in a sense, about what it is we are reflecting as a society to your society. And again, noticing the penchant of your society to latch on to the messenger and toss out the message. We do not wish to be perceived in that way. We thank you.
Thank you.
Next, shedding.
Hi, Elan. I can't believe I'm doing this, but this is the new me.
All right.
Preferred me.
Then perhaps you will turn that around and say, I can believe I'm doing this.
Yes.
All right.
I had a dream probably about 15 years ago, and it's a little very vivid, and I never forgot it. It reminds me of what you and Bashar said about Maldek exploding. My dream was that Jupiter exploded, and the force of the explosion altered the orbit of the Earth, so the Earth was moved closer to the Sun. As a consequence, the atmosphere heated up pretty much, and the people were dying right and left. And the people that survived were resisting because they jumped into the ocean. The ocean waters were starting to bubble and boil. And then the spaceship came down and landed, and a platform came out, and there were two beings that came out. And they helped me on the platform, and they said, we are here to help you learn to live in your new planet. We'll help you to survive on this new, in this new atmosphere. Was that about Maldek, or was that?
Ace, very directly. Now, before you proceed, allow us to share with those who may not be familiar. There is, in your particular solar system, what you label an asteroid belt between your planets of Mars and Jupiter. From our perspective, from our particular observations, that was once a planet that was inhabited with beings similar to yourself. Similar, not exactly. That particular planet, through what you might call a vibrational resonance means, created, shall we say, an arsenal of weaponry, at, shall we say, the fulmination of which they literally cracked their planet like a gem. It was not, in that sense, nuclear annihilation as you understand it, but more the utilization of carefully placed vibrations that again resulted in the actual literal explosion or breaking apart of that planet. There was at that time the infusion of much consciousness onto what you now consider to be your own planet. And this did occur at approximately the same time, give or take a few years, perhaps you can say, as what you consider to be the beginning of mankind upon Earth. So therefore, again, from one perspective, there was overtones of that scenario in the dream. There was also overtones of your connections, even at that point, with extraterrestrial sources. And there was also the recognition that you have, in a sense, come down here to a new planet to explore a new reality. So we thank you.
Thank you. Speaking of my connection to like you, innate. When I was in college, probably 20 years ago, I was drawn to a perfume called Elan, and people always told me how beautiful it was. And at the time, I was taking the language French, and I learned that Elan means elusive. And
that is one of the many meanings.
Turns out that was the literal meaning in Maldek, because I can't find that perfume anymore. But also, my skis are named Elan, so I wonder if I was drawn to those particular items because I knew of like the connection to you in the future.
Yes. And again, having, shall we say, dropped particular representative symbols in your path along the way, were then able to recognize us when you found us, so to speak.
Okay, good.
And we thank you for the recognition of that particular synchronicity, which is the interwoven nature of all reality, where everything fits, everything has a reason. You create the significance, and we thank you.
One other thing, when I saw you for my private session back in January, I asked my girlfriend Susie where she was living at that time. She had been living in California, and I asked if she was living in the same area, and you said approximately. I just got a letter from her about a week ago, and she moved to Texas.
All right.
So from your
to treat us as an equal, and understand that you just spoke to me as an Essassani would speak to another Essassani.
Thank you.
And to you. Shutting.
Hello, Elan.
Greetings.
It's wonderful to hear you. You have spoken of our creativity. I wondered if you would share with us what sort of creativity you enjoy the most at home.
Thank you. Understand again from our perspective, everything that you do is an act of creation. And on our particular planet, in our society, we fully recognize the interwoven nature of all reality. Therefore, we take simply for granted that in any given moment, anybody that we are interacting with is exactly who we need to be interacting with. Anything that we know is exactly what we need to know. And if we do not know something, it is simply not relevant to that moment. So therefore, anything that I am ever doing is recognized by me, by all members of my society, as an act of creation. Now, perhaps what you are asking is, do I have any, what you might call in your planet, hobbies? And my particular interests are in various forms of what you might call music, though, shall we say, our definition of music may differ slightly from yours. To some degree, visual art, that, shall we say, differs quite a bit from yours. And also, most, shall we say, in the forefront of my particular consciousness at this time is extra, shall we say, Essassani communications, communicating with many other aspects of all that is, exploring, if you will, the multiverse. These are my main interests.
Thank you.
Is that all?
Yes.
Well, thank you. Shutting.
You touched briefly about when we choose to leave our bodies.
Ace.
Can you talk a little bit more about when or how we make that decision?
Ace, first of all, understand that, again, you do not always allow yourself to be privy of the agreements you have made as a higher self. So by simply understanding that that is a notion, you can begin to check in, for you are not disconnected from your higher self and need to reestablish a connection as though you are two separate things. No, you are one expression. But perhaps what will be most helpful to you is to explain in general what individuals experience upon physical translation. Now, this will vary from person to person, literally, but in general, a representational explanation will be as follows. You begin to perceive yourself literally expanding, again, beginning to contain things that you used to perceive you existed within. You, in a sense, loosen up your grip and your specific hold on this particular life and personality, but still maintain a conscious awareness of it. Now, this is where it gets, shall we say, a little sticky. for what you first experience and then continue to experience in what you might colloquially call the afterlife is whatever you believe to be most likely. So therefore, whereby in this physical world you create a belief, and there is the middlemen, if you will, or women of emotion, thought, and action before you create. In that particular reality, you are a thought form in a sea of thought energy. And there is no intervening middle symbol. The moment you think something with conviction, you experience it. So therefore, knowing this, you can understand why many of the religious beliefs on your planet are literally played out by individuals who expect that scenario and literally create their version of that scenario. What this allows you to do is get in touch with what you now believe to be most likely upon transition and begin to perhaps crystallize within your mind what you would most prefer to experience. Therefore, you have quite a bit of say as to the quality of that experience. Is this addressing the issue?
A little. I guess I should be a little more specific.
All right.
I'm right now thinking about my mother, who is fairly ill, and went to the hospital about a week ago and said she wanted to die. However, she didn't die. I said that, choice didn't happen right now. So what I perceive from her is a lot of fear. I don't know if I'm accurate about that. And I guess there's a conflict within her in saying that she wants to leave her body and yet has not made the step to leave her body.
Well, shall we say there are other issues involved in her particular instance? Certain, shall we say, unfinished business. Strings left untied. So therefore, you can begin to converse with her about what these ideas might be.
Should I ask her in general terms or
Both.
are there any specifics that you could think of? Probably her relationship with me.
Again, simply pose it in that same way. What is the unfinished business you perceive you still have, in a sense, to take care of? And very often this will key them into particular ideas they had not considered. There is also, shall we say, from our perception of the higher self of that individual, not necessarily the total decision to pass at this time. So again, in conversing with her, many of these issues will arise. But handing her back her power and speaking to her as though she has something to do with it allows her to see through you, your willingness to validate that she creates it as well.
Okay. Another subject. I've had the feeling for a long time that, and I don't know if you can address this or not, but I've had the feeling that something traumatic happened to me when I was in our life form at about 3 years old or so. I have no recollection of it. I just have a feeling of it.
All right. When you feel that, what comes up?
More like a blank wall. And I've seen a picture of myself around that time, and what I see in the eyes of the little child is fear. And I saw a picture, pictures say a couple of years before that, and there was pure joy. So
I will assume that you have at least entertained certain possibilities. Can you share them?
Well, the thought that comes to me is just a thought that I was abused in some way, but I don't have any physical sensation. As I said, I have a blank memory about that.
Our strongest perception was that you were, shall we say, frightened in a large degree. It is not obvious to us what did the frightening, but we are less, shall we say, apt to perceive abuse. Therefore, is there someone you can ask from that time?
I asked my mother, and she has no recollection at all, and she's the only one that's around. Is there any other way that I can release this fear?
Does the, shall we say, symbol of a very large dog mean anything to you?
Not at present.
All right. That is all we are receiving, so
Okay.
therefore, toss that around.
Okay. Thank you.
And to you. Shedding.
Greetings again, Elan.
And to you.
I'm tempted to say something like, how are you? But I know that we're both always perfect and you're always aware of it.
All right. We thank you for that recognition, that you are always a perfect reflection of whatever you are choosing to explore. And perfection is not something that need be achieved, simply realized.
My question relates to a recent experience I had with a psychic friend. We had a session, and the subject we were exploring was I wanted to find out if I had a block or in effect something inhibiting my ability to create. I had had some input from other sources that indicated this may have been a subconscious or some other sort of problem that I didn't, something that I wouldn't prefer, something that I wouldn't want to buy into. Specifically, it had to do with a genetic type of problem where...
Describe.
In the session, what we did was we created an imagination, which I'm validating about this experience, a circular staircase which simulated the building
All right,
block.
we understand. Do proceed.
Okay. And the instruction was to look for steps that were missing or damaged and to replace them, which I found a number of them and knew their meanings and did so. This model I preferred to the input I had from other friends, but I still would like your assistance in validating this experience a bit more.
May I ask you a simple question?
Yes.
Why do you perceive that there is a block to begin with? And what is it that it is blocking you from doing?
The blocking is creating what I want as rapidly as I would like. And I perceive it because my expectations perhaps exceed my abilities or whatever.
Do you not trust in your timing? Is there a particular rigid expectation that this is what it is that I wish in that sense to create, and this is exactly the time that I want it? For understand, from our perspective, in your physical universe that has timeline, in that particular instance, with your background and the background of most individuals' beliefs, you are setting yourself up by insisting that it must come at a particular timing. And your willingness to loosen up and simply say, this is what I wish in the perfect timing that I can appreciate it to the greatest degree. That is what allows the universe to work. When you then place rigid expectations of the timing, that is where you quote unquote set yourself up. So therefore, again, expectation is this is what I want and this is exactly how I want it. I will not accept it in any other way. Expectancy is this is what I want. Now I will allow my life to attract it in whatever way it will.
I do attempt to work it the way you do describe. However, I could be better at it. Let's put it that way.
All right. Well, again, attempting is just a fancy word for trying.
Which
and
we
you
don't
simply
use, yeah.
either try something or do it. For trying is simply not the doing of the thing, but the doing of trying. So therefore, from this point forward, to whatever degree you are willing to be clear about what your intention is, do so. Imbue it. But if you are willing to lighten up on how the universe delivers it to you, then you do not put in the blocks. You allow it to deliver it in the perfect timing. And to, shall we say, in a sense, you can say, keep yourself busy in the meantime. Simply stay grounded in the moment. Again, it's the only time you ever experience. If you spend a now moment worrying about a perceived future, commiserating about a perceived past, you are now not looking at the choices right in front of you. You are factoring in choices that you cannot act upon, which distracts you from the choices that are there. All you need in that sense do is have the clear intention. Put out the clear intention. And then reground yourself to what is available in any given moment. And then from those choices, with your integrity, with full cognizance of your agreements with other individuals and so forth, choose the one that moves you the most. Choose the one that excites you the most in each and every given moment. Therefore, you are functioning from each moment and by choosing what excites you, having a good time the whole time, not setting yourself up with a dangling carrot that you never reach.
Thank you for that. I have been keeping very busy and in a very nice level of abundance, thank you. So perhaps I should rephrase my question a little bit more specifically.
Well, before you do, allow us to also say that, first of all, we do not perceive any specific blocks. We do perceive that you have the notion that there is a block, and that can be all that is necessary to create the seemingness of the block itself.
And the process which worked on the non-block also, I guess.
But again, when you label something a block, you are not using your creation. You are saying everything fits, but this is extraneous. This is a block. The definition of it as a block is the only thing that makes it feel to have that effect.
That's why I wanted to ask this question, because as I stated before, I don't prefer this particular information, but I did want to validate my imagination.
Ace.
In the direction that you don't have to teach a bird to build a nest. That's already in the DNA or whatever.
In a sense.
In a sense, this block or negative information, thought form, whatever, was implied to be at that level or working from that level. Does it happen to human beings that certain inhibitions come from that level?
From our perspective, only if you assign that it does. And in fact, it actually, from our perspective, works the other way around. You have the notion that your DNA is etched in stone, and again, create the evidence that this is so. But are you to drastically enough change your consciousness? Your physical body, being an expression of your consciousness and not the other way around, literally changes and can literally affect what you might call minute aspects of your DNA. So from our perspective, cause and effect are quite superimposable in this case. It is not our perspective that there is any genetic predisposition keeping you from doing the things, or shall we say, accomplishing the things that you choose to accomplish. When we speak about validating your imagination, we don't always mean to take it literally. Where we generally suggest to take it literally is when you use it as a model or a template, or to create that referential, preferential you. So you can always use it. You can utilize what it brings to you, but you do not have to etch it, as you say, in stone, and can always change your relationship to what your imagination has provided. So therefore, you need not, if you decide that it is not genetically inclined, therefore now invalidate your imagination. It has served that function. It has had you look at certain issues. But if overall you understand that it is not your genetics, your imagination still led you to that realization.
I agree. I chose to look at the process, not in its specifics, but that it was a positive experience, which allowed me to create a process to handle a particular disagreement within myself.
Ace. Now, from our perspective, should you simply decide that the block no longer exists, trust that, and act as though you trust that, you will no longer have the effect of a block. And you will, from this moment forward, have transformed it, not gotten rid of it. There's nowhere to get rid of anything to. All your negative emotions, all the beliefs you wish not to have, there's nowhere to put them. You are everything. There is no outside. There is nowhere to get rid of anything to. Therefore, what you do is you shift your relationship to it. You shift its significance to you by choosing something else that has a new set of parameters, and then that simply becomes irrelevant. So, just assume that your block has been removed by you, by the simple willingness to look at such an idea. Proceed from this point forward with that frame of mind, with those actions, and you will no longer perceive the effects of being blocked. And you have utilized what we had began this interaction by sharing. It is that simple.
Thank you. You've told me what I wanted.
And we thank you. Shutting.
Hi, Elan.
And to you, greetings.
Maui drew a beautiful picture for me, which I believe is also of me. And since then, I've drawn the exact same picture, the same being. Can you tell me anything about this being?
Proceed.
No, especially the environment it lives in. It lives in water.
Yes, but first we ask for your participation.
Okay.
What up to this point do you understand?
About the being.
Yes.
That it's
What
very,
conclusions have you drawn to this point that will allow us to expand upon them?
well, I knew instantly it was me. I said, oh, that's me. And then afterwards I thought, wow, that's me. I was very surprised when I drew the same thing.
Why?
Certainly. I guess that validated it then. It made it real. There's no getting away from it then. Because up until then I was wondering if my automatic drawing was actually real. So
It will always be up to you to
Yeah.
decide. From
Well,
our
no, it
perspective,
is.
it is.
It is, yes, it is. But as to I hadn't really given it any more thought as to the actual nature of the being.
All right, then do so right now. What type of atmosphere do you perceive it exists
Well,
within?
Well, Mary suggested it was a sea creature, and
All right,
that sounded right to me.
go on.
But it's such a solid mass. It's hard to see how it moves because well, I call it the blob. It's it's very solid, and it's like a teardrop shape,
Ace.
and it doesn't seem to have any means of propelling itself along.
Our perception in that sense would be two ways. One you would call amoeboid motion. So although you sense that it is solid, it is a bit more, shall we say, jelly-like than you might
okay.
imagine. The other particular style of motion, one moment we will access. All right. Again, this is merely an interpretation of the vocabulary available from the channel, but would translate loosely to flagellate, which would be, in that sense, the pointed end flapping,
I see.
so to speak.
Wow. Okay. Ah, that's a surprise. Wow. Okay. Does it have a particular sex, or is it? What is it?
In the way that you mean, no.
No, I didn't think so.
It is an entirely different exploration of consciousness altogether.
Mhm.
And in that sense, you may understand that that particular representation of your oversoul is, in a sense, more animal than what you consider to be human consciousness.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Talking of future selves, I haven't knowingly talked to Ira in quite a long time. I just wonder what she's doing or where she is or what's happening.
All right. In that sense, she is involved in many of the same endeavors that myself and what we have labeled Bashar are involved in. Extraterrestrial or extra Essassani or extra-dimensional communication. She is part, in that sense, of what you might loosely call, though we are not so formal about it, a team of individuals that interacts in that way, sometimes through the format you label channeling for civilizations that we are just beginning to approach, and other times physically in much the way that perhaps we will interact with your planet within the next few years.
That's great.
Now, just because you have not been doing speaking does not mean that she has not. Have you heard what has been said?
Yes.
All right. You can always listen in. You need not comment. Simply listen.
Yes. I've also begun automatic writing, which is wonderful, and I really enjoy it. I don't know why I'm even saying this. I'm surprised
that is one of the ways you are utilizing to allow yourself to, shall we say, prime the pump.
Yes, I know. I'm surprised that she hasn't come through in my writing yet.
What makes you think she has not?
Oh, it doesn't feel like it's her. And why I'm expecting it to be her, I don't know.
It will feel different if that is to be the case than perhaps any of the other consciousness that you are, in that sense, communicating with.
Okay.
And it may feel different than the other style of communication.
Yes, that's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
And we thank you. Shedding.
Elan,
Ace.
greetings.
And to you, good day.
Now, it is my understanding through ascension that the planet itself will have to be cleansed at a certain point, that those on the planet who are light workers in many facets around the world are doing many things with the grid systems in sort of making things less.
Ace, but the cleansing, if you wish to call it that, is not an external cleansing. It is, shall we say, each individual taking back their own power, so to speak, cleaning their own house. And when you change, your vibration changes, what you attract changes, what you perceive changes, and therefore the reality around you literally changes. So our particular perspective of that style of house cleaning, again, so to speak, would more be the individual willingness to begin to validate who you are, to begin to validate what moves you, what excites you with integrity, and not only proceed on what everyone else tells you you should do.
Mm-hmm.
As this happens, each individual, they attract each other, they form a nucleus, it spreads out. Individuals then attract to themselves that technology, that philosophy, and then perhaps even physically, as the mentality, as the consciousness changes in the mass unconsciousness of your planet, then you will begin to see some of the, shall we say, regeneration of the physical aspects of the planet. But it will always begin within and by each individual.
Okay, now we've discussed at times about parallel realities and about the Earth. There are many different Earths.
Ace.
So as we're living here on this particular Earth, there might be others on another Earth at another dimensional level.
There absolutely are.
Okay.
Though perhaps you can say their relevance to you is little or none, which is why you perceive yourself on this particular version of Earth.
Mm-hmm. Now, I understand your answer about cleansing within each and everyone's individual self. It starts with yourself. But the planet as a whole, with the pollution, and I watch a lot about the dolphins and the whales and stuff, and you see the disregard for all of this, all these other...
Well, to some degree. There are also individuals quite active in the positive transformation of these symbols. So where is your attention falling, and what is it that you are, shall we say, reaffirming, reasserting?
I see.
Allow your evidence, now that you are focused in an intention to move forward positively in regard to your planet, allow now the evidence of other individuals doing so to be what attracts your attention, rather than the things you do not prefer. Now, the things you do not prefer may key you in onto some actions that you may take. And if this is so, all well and good. But again, also at least give yourself the option to see the positive evidence as well.
It seems as if... I'm not used to standing up here asking you questions. It seems as if the cleansing process will... well, we were told by the Ashtarp command in our discussions and sharings with them is that there'll be a point where they'll have to bring people onto certain ships to do some cleansing of the whole planet itself, and not the people, but in terms of the planet's structure itself.
Now, understand, we are not invalidating anything you choose to believe, and that will always be your choice. But that is not our perspective.
Right.
For that would imply that you need saving. And it is not the intention of any extraterrestrial civilization to save you, for they do not believe you are drowning. They understand your self-empowerment. And even the implication that you need to be saved has the underlying notion that you do not create your own reality and that you are not responsible for the creation of your own reality. So therefore, members of the Association of Worlds, labeling many hundreds of extraterrestrial societies, shall we say as a membership requirement, have this overall understanding. Many of these civilizations are not focused as you are and do not feel the separation to begin with that you feel. So therefore, we would only approach you with a detached form of attachment. In other words, we will be of service in any way that we can. We will do what excites us in order to communicate things to you that will reflect to you things that will enable you in that sense to grow and change if you choose to. But we will not feel sorry for you or sympathy for you, for we understand that no matter what you choose, you created. And it does not do you any favors in that sense to lend you sympathy. Compassion? Yes. Willingness to be of service? Yes. Feeling sorry for? No. And therefore, there is no need to beam you up.
Right. I agree with you 100% on that. Why would is it the individual consciousness of the person that is allowing Ashtar to be embodied, to her perception is getting somewhat filtered?
To some degree, there are also the hopes and wishes of that individual. But also, again, there is the overlapping. There are, as you say, other earth realities that they exist, shall we say, more strongly upon in the form that you are saying.
I see. I know that...
Now, this does not mean in any way that we are suggesting to stop having fun with this idea. No. Simply giving you our perspective as a gift with the receipt to return it if you wish.
I see. Well, I understand in speaking with Sananda, is also known in our biblical terms as Jesus Christ, that my understanding as I do more reading into that is that he, as a being, is an ascended master in a sense, and doesn't want to be treated or looked upon as some sort of
Savior. And in fact, the being Christ never used that word, never fed into the helplessness of each individual, was a living embodiment of the unconditional love of the world spirit itself, showing individuals that if you do this, you will realize the Creator within you. Do as I do. A true master will be the first to tell you that you are also a master. And that was the perspective. Now understand, the words that individuals generally read were not written by him.
They were written by
interpretations, other individuals, many times, many decades later.
What happened to the original materials?
It was the living of the life itself.
I
are, shall we say, certain notes that were taken. You may find that your society will discover certain lost, shall we say, writings that will help illuminate to some degree. But it was never the perspective of that individual to say that that was the only way and that you needed to be saved. Just that if you wished to transform your life, here is the way to do it. Here is a living example of how to do it.
One final comment for now is that I'm excited about the fact that I'm doing the Intergalactic TV network, which is our first taping is July 7th. And we're going to be real basic in terms of not assuming that people understand about space beings from other places or space brothers and space sisters, but that we're going to take it from the step of, okay, this is just a basic knowledge of understanding that we will share with the viewers on the TV. And I'm very excited about that. And then I'm so excited to the point where we've gotten to the point of having an actual form that we're going to use to get people to sponsor the show, because we cannot make a profit on public access here on this planet as we have a system. But so that I'm excited about. I just wanted to let you know.
And we thank you for your willingness to share who you are.
Thank you very much, Elan.
And you as well. Next, sharing. Greetings.
At the last interaction, I asked you about my animals and the baths they had to get for that parasite. And I was wondering if that was all taken care of.
Ace.
Yes, okay. Along that line, you said my animals took on that illness for me.
In a sense, yes.
I was wondering what the dynamics of that was and how that works, and how can
in general, it is quite literal. In that sense, they assisted you, being that dogs are literally a symbol of service itself. In, shall we say, freeing you up to do the things you needed to do during this very hectic time.
So why would I have created the illness to begin with if...
You tell me.
But if they were to take... I don't understand how that serves me. If I was to...
By allowing them to be of service to you, serves you and them.
Are they consciously aware?
not necessarily in the way that you mean, for their conscious awareness differs greatly from your own.
Okay.
May we progress to the next idea, however. Allow us to now expand upon what you are about to enter. Are you familiar with the terminology chrysalis?
Yes.
Perhaps a synonym in your language would be cocoon.
Mm-hmm.
This is similar to what you are entering
Yes.
with the physical moving of yourself into a, shall we say, perhaps larger than you initially expected area,
Right.
but still small. And you may understand the analogy goes across the board. Not that you are a homely caterpillar now, but that a beautiful butterfly will emerge.
That's exactly how I felt. And when you were talking about
Now understand, around these cocoons there can be some dirt, a few bugs, some noises late at night.
Mhm.
But you need not realize anything but that is part of the experience, part of the connection with nature itself.
Okay.
Therefore, pleasant dreams.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. Also, I wanted to know, I can't read my writing, but how does an illness serve you why does an illness go away if you don't know how it served you?
In general. Now again, there are as many different specifics as there are individuals. But in general, you are telling yourself something on a level and not listening. Therefore, you create a symbol to force you to look at that issue. Now, you may not necessarily look at it consciously. Now, for instance, to utilize very simple example, you may, for instance, simply need physical rest and simply will not do so. So you then force yourself into the position where you have no choice but to rest. Once you have done any version of fulfilling why you created that symbol, the symbol transforms and perhaps you are never aware of any of it. But now that we are discussing ownership in your reality, that you created all, including the dis-ease and the cure, you can now begin to consciously search for symbols and begin to, shall we say, make your conscious mind privy to the reason that you create such symbols.
Okay.
Now, for instance, with your particular symbol, you are perceiving to some degree a hostility from your environment. Do you understand what we mean?
No. The symbol of the animals?
The symbol of your barrier between your physical self and your environment is your skin.
Right.
Ice. So therefore, when individuals may feel unwelcome in their environment, for instance, many times the symbol they will create is the interface between the inner and outer environment, to use that particular example. Does that make more sense?
A little bit. So I feel uncomfortable in my environment.
Well, you are now shifting that. The pressure you have created has resulted in the shift.
All right. For instance, when I had, I guess the example I was going to give is when I had all the gallbladder and stomach problems for those years, I went over every possible reason in my head and came up with nothing. And then I was able to just transmute it by myself.
Shall we say, again, by extension and analogy, that there were certain ideas within your consciousness. They are not necessarily obvious to us what they are at this moment, but that you are, in a sense, having difficulty digesting. And as you began in that sense to absorb them and allow them to be part of you, you simply then transform that symbol.
Okay.
Now, from that framework, does that make more sense?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Now, with the Lyme disease, the same thing happened, but now I keep getting, lately, drawn into the thought that, perhaps I didn't transmute it, and this is what's happening. I, will get pains in my knees and hands.
But you are assigning, in the moment that you create the pain, the tether. You are creating the connection. In other words, a given moment comes along. You feel something you may consider pain, which is always the result of resistance to yourself. You have an option to view in this moment, where I'm standing right now, with what's in my life right now. How does this serve me and what does it mean? Then you can look at that symbol and in that moment integrate and transform it if you are honest with yourself. The moment, however, you take it out of that moment, so to speak, you never truly can, and say, oh, here's a pain. It must be that same old pain again. You connect this particular now moment to that past moment. So the present is not a result of the past until you establish that it is. And if you are willing to isolate each incident and understand and utilize gleaning the positive meaning from what is available, not bringing in, shall we say, that old baggage, then you can begin to look at how the symbols are relevant to you in that moment without the distraction of the baggage.
I guess what I'm not being clear about my question is, when does it go from, because for the longest time,
By the way, before you proceed, do you understand what was said?
yes, absolutely.
Do you isolate it in each given moment before we perceive that you do
Okay.
not?
All right, I did for months and months and months and months. Whenever it came, I just said, that's not it. That's not.
All right, then what did you say? How does this serve me exactly as it is?
I did in the beginning with the Lyme disease, and after that, I just started ignoring it.
But we perceive that there was a cessation of the symptoms when you were doing so. And then you changed your mind and took, perhaps you can say, the old approach.
Yes.
But you can consciously decide to continue that positive approach.
Okay, now where's the difference between that idea and that approach and to someone having a broken leg or cancer? Like, where can you?
Same approach. How does this serve me exactly as it is? What does it force me to look at that I would not have looked at without that symbol?
Okay, I guess I get, because if you have a broken leg, you go to the doctor and you get it set.
And generally either consciously or unconsciously look at particular issues. Sometimes as obvious as, well, I was a bit clumsy, I'll be a bit more careful. But in general, when you break literally physically a part of your body, there are deeper issues of ideas that are discontinuous within you. So you can always, in that sense, utilize knowing what you know now to even look at that from that perspective. You also buy very heavily into a particular time frame in which you will allow yourself to heal. So this in general is why individuals don't spontaneously heal that particular symbol once the recognition is there. But you will invariably find the healing to be faster when the issues are looked at.
Okay. One other question. Can you say something that would help a friend of mine, Anna Boyd in Hawaii? She's having a very difficult time right now. And if you could say anything to
What is the nature of the difficulty?
emotional and physical.
Very simple.
Mostly emotional.
Use it all, particularly the emotions, as they are the windows to her beliefs. So every time a negative emotion comes up, you will always have the choice to go, oh no, not again. Or, thank you. Since I am feeling something that I do not prefer, there is a belief in there. I can now nail it down. Now that I have it, I can change it. Thank you. You can use it all. Particularly, again, because your emotions are direct windows to your belief systems.
Okay, thank you.
And to you. At this timing, we will pause for a short break of 10 to 15 of your minutes of counting and resume contact at that time. All right, I'll say, continue shedding.
Hi, Lon. My name is Jennifer. It's nice to be here.
Greetings.
Hi. I have a question. I was in a car accident in November, and it was a pretty bad experience as I perceived it. I had my infant son and my daughter in the car with me. Now, they weren't hurt and I was. But I had a distinct feeling before we collided, the two cars collided, that I was taken out of my body and put back in, because by all rights I should have been hurt much more than I was. Also, the scars, or the scars I had on my face, or the injuries I had on my face, cleared up within a week. And the doctors just couldn't believe it. And I was left with a ringing in my ears, which I went to a doctor for also. And they said there was nothing that they could do, that I didn't have any ringing in my ears, and I do. And it's very tonal.
Are you, in that sense, inclined toward psychic ability?
Yes.
Understand that very often, and particularly in almost all the cases of what you would call channels, at some point in the life, there is an abrupt blow to the system. This is, in a sense, a form of rewiring, literally, and also will have something to do with the fact that individuals very often, when beginning to literally, in their life, accelerate, will sometimes, shall we say, put on the brakes. But understand that what occurred was more of an internal, positive, rewiring idea. Was there some way where it was most obvious how that was of service to you as opposed to what was bad about it?
Oh, yes. There were many ways. Yeah.
Now understand that you have willingly gleaned this quite quickly, correct?
Yes.
This is why, again, the symbols, shall we say, no longer had the need to hang around. And this is what we are saying. Yes, it still took some time to heal, for there is still within the belief systems the idea of the need for such time. But when you actually get down to the business of looking as a creator, why you created any particular symbol, any lingering effects of it will simply clear up quite quickly. So it is what we have already shared.
Yeah.
Now, you may notice, in that sense, if you wish to liken the ringing in your ears to a telephone, that if you are willing to pick up the phone, perhaps you will no longer continue to perceive it as ringing in that way. We perceive agreements that have been made between you and, for now, what we will vaguely label other consciousness. And though it need not necessarily take the form before you, that is one option in how you can communicate from that consciousness. Are you to any degree aware of this?
Yes. When I gave birth to my son, which was 3 months before the accident, I heard a voice, and I perceived it being outside my head. It was a male voice. I've only heard it once since then.
Then you are in full contact, and will find from this point forward, though it may not always be necessary to perceive it as a discrete vocalized expression or voice, that you will, if you pick up the phone, be able to have a conversation. And understand that I say if, because that is representative of the fact that, yes, you made an agreement, but it is always part of the agreement to decide whether you wish to participate in the agreement or not. So in a sense, you can say the ringing is symbolic of the fact that it is up to you, and you do not have to do anything.
Yes. Well, I'm very afraid.
Of what?
Are
you afraid of yourself?
Yes.
Why?
I don't know.
All right. Well, what of yourself are you afraid of? What could you create that you could not handle?
Happiness. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, it is our perception that you could handle that. Understand again that fear is in and of itself an expression of a belief. In this particular case, a polarized expression. For fear is believing that something that you do not prefer is most likely. Now, from that perspective, you can look at, why would I believe that, and do I truly wish to believe that? There is nothing that you can possibly learn about yourself that you need be afraid of. Even what you might call the darkest recesses of your mind contain things which may not be relevant to you, may not be expressions of who you are, but never by looking at them can they harm you. Again, as we have said, you only manifest in your life the thoughts, the beliefs, the emotions that you act upon. So you can always be aware of many ideas, but only will experience the ones you act upon. So these are many ideas that you can now use. If you feel afraid, first of all, feel it. Do not squelch it. Do not hold it back. Feel it, and in fact, go one step further. Do the best you can to feel it as much as you can. Invite it, challenge it to come and feel it. And when you do, then, while you are feeling it, not now looking back on a hypothetical situation, while you are feeling it, ask yourself the simple question, what must I believe in this moment with these circumstances in order to fear that something I do not prefer is most likely? That is using all your creations, even the fear. You cannot get rid of fear. You will always give yourself the opportunity in that sense to look at the things, the issues that come up in your life. But only by feeling them and then tracing back can this be of assistance to you. Is that clear?
It's very clear.
Therefore, again, understand, if your intention is unconditionally loving, and I will assume that it is, and you then act with that unconditional love as a premise, all you can get out of it is the expression from yourself of unconditional love to others, and then slowly, perhaps with a bit of a lag, begin to perceive being unconditionally loved by others. So therefore, it is not what is lurking in there that can get you that winds up showing up in your life. It is your clear intention that you then act upon. So if you are coming from a place of love and light, all you can get is love and light. And you can never be overwhelmed. Any creation you ever create, by definition, tells you, because you have created it, that you can handle it. You do not create things you can't handle. That simply would make no sense. That would mean there is extraneous creations. So therefore, you can simply assume by its presence in your life that now is the time that you are amply able to handle it. Therefore, look at these ideas. Allow the fear to come up. Embrace it. Thank it. And allow it to serve you. Allow it to trace back to beliefs that perhaps again you bought into unconsciously. But the moment you realize those beliefs, they are no longer unconscious. Now you choose to either continue them or choose anew. And it is that simple. Allow us to also share one other thing along the lines of it is that simple. Individuals create sometimes a process. Perhaps they label it psychoanalysis. Perhaps they label it many things. But the gist is that they feel personally responsible to nail down each thing that is holding them back and create a very lengthy process that may take years, decades, or perhaps longer to finally get down to it. And that is one way to do it, but it takes a long time. With what we are speaking of, simply deciding to be that idea, trusting in that decision that things have changed, and acting upon the situations in your life with the new you as a premise, automatically this processing gets done with no effort on your part. And how it does so in perfect timing for you to integrate it is in that particular way, by the presentation of negative emotionality. Your negative emotional reactions are that automatic processing. For the moment that happens, you get to say, what must I believe to feel this? Once you nail down that belief, you've done the processing, but you've done it in the timing that it comes up. You've used the timing in your life rather than insist that you must go through it bit by bit. And it is not a bottomless barrel. There is a finite number of issues. Therefore, as you integrate one at a time, you literally become lighter. Lighter in weight sometimes, but also lighter in attitude, and also infuse what you may call one of the many bodies that you have, your light body. So you literally lighten up, become enlightened. You can use all of it, including the fear.
Thank you. I have another question. It's about a dream. I had a dream. Again, this is with fear. But I was awake in my bedroom, and I knew I was there. I knew I was in my bedroom, and the dream was still going on. I don't understand what happened.
Well, simply you woke up from a dream into another dream, and in that sense gave yourself the opportunity to view how much you feel you really do have say over your own reality. Also, there is again the notion of the dark corners, which you may wish to now boldly shine a flashlight upon. For there is nothing that you can possibly discover about yourself that you cannot use in a positive way in order to bolster and reaffirm who you are in a positive way.
Okay. Thank you.
And to you. Next, sharing. Ace.
I've had a similar experience, just like the person before.
All right.
And this past week, I've had a ringing in my ear, very strong, and also this week. And I was wondering if it's someone on this plane or somewhere else.
What you would consider to be not of this plane, but directly connected to this plane.
How do you mean? I don't understand.
In other words, what is in that way communicating with you is not now in a body, but has been.
And where are they now?
They are, in a sense, behind the scenes in what you might call the afterlife, acting as a guide, but you are familiar with them and have lived many lives together.
Female, or was it female when I last knew them?
When you last knew them, yes. But again, that becomes quite arbitrary in that state.
This life.
It is not immediately obvious to us.
Okay. I have something else. In dreams, and I think I've discussed with Rashad this last year, and I felt that there was someone again in my bedroom several times. And sometimes in dreams, what I feel is like someone is touching me from the inside out.
Ace.
What is that?
It can be several things. It can also be other consciousness, in a sense, touching you, and that can be your interpretation of it. Or it can simply be another portion of yourself, in a sense, tapping you on the shoulder, so to speak, to get your attention.
That's very strange. It feels scary.
All right. Well, when it happens, look at how you are feeling and what you must believe.
Well, the thing is, I live by myself. I like when I go to sleep, I think that there's going to be beings in my room or coming at night, and I don't want to be alone.
All right. Well, do understand that nobody is beating down the door to annoy you. No. It is always by agreement. There is always a joy in the interaction, and the interactions are only requested by choice.
Right.
So therefore, it will never in any way be imposed upon you.
Right, and I wanted to know at this point, have I made an agreement with some being?
Well, our perception is that you have, but again, we remind you part and parcel of any agreement is your ability to say, I'm out.
You mean I don't want to make contact?
Yes, it's up to you.
Yeah, I'm afraid.
It is an unconditional agreement. Therefore, you can do nothing, to use your colloquial language, to screw it up, but you can also choose not to do it. It is up to you. There are simply no conditions. You cannot lose the agreement unless you decide no go.
And this last thing about the ringing in my ear, this being, what are they trying to help me, and how are they trying to help me? How can I understand more from them?
In a sense, you may understand that you are still, to some degree, feeling yourself to be off balance a bit. Mm-hmm. And this, shall we say, incongruity within you is also partially responsible for the actual ringing. Our particular suggestion would be to simply listen to it from a different set of ears, as perhaps you can say a song from within. From that particular perspective, the nature of the sound will change. And then you can decide what you wish to do with it.
So it's going to continue.
Again, it is suggested that if you reinterpret it, its effect will change And again, it need not be permanent, no.
Can you also help me on another thing?
Maybe.
On letting go of a relationship.
All right. Simply just do it. What are you holding on to? What you are holding on to is a representation of who you no longer are. How can you, when you fill the space that you have with who you no longer are, have any room to now express who you are or who you prefer to be? Letting go in such an instance is not losing anything. It is simply creating a void or a vacuum which now gets filled, which now attracts a new representation of the new you. So therefore, letting go can be viewed as quite exciting, for again, it makes room. Does that help?
Yeah, I think I'm going to have a process.
Oh, that is up to you. You can create as much of a process as you wish, but we do remind you that you are all already complete. When you decide that you are not complete as you are by yourself, that is your choice. And when you do make that decision, you become that vibration. Therefore, the universe always supplies you evidence of your beliefs. So therefore, if you believe yourself to be incomplete, you will attract many reflections of those feelings of incompleteness. If you attempt to attract a relationship to make you complete, you cannot fool Mother Nature. You will still feel incomplete, and that relationship may very well reflect to you in a more amplified manner those feelings of incompleteness. Now, we do not say this to create despair. We say this to allow you to begin to nurture that primary relationship with yourself. Decide you are already complete. Trust in that and act that way. Then what you attract will be a reflection of that completeness. And if you already feel complete, there is no effort in letting go of something that is no longer representative of who you are. So we stray your attention in that direction. All right.
Yes, and is there going to be a shift very soon?
There already is. Will you continue to be the embodiment of that shift?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. It is that simple. And that's what you have already been doing, though not consciously.
Yeah, sometimes I do see the change, but at the times it seems very slow.
Well, when you say it's slow, you are not concentrating on the changes. You are using the old belief system and the old background created by the old belief system to validate the new change, and that will not work. You must re-establish the new you and allow the new you to create the evidence. Allow the new you to be unwilling to settle for anything less than who it is you define yourself to be. So use that imagination as we have shared. When you find yourself going to pick up that phone to call the individual you wish to really let go, drum up the new preferred you in your imagination. Feel how that you feels. The feeling activates the whole mechanism and then allows you to think like the new you. If you simply state the new belief and begin to attempt to think like the new you, you are missing a step. But if you feel it, if you affirm it until you actually feel it, you will think differently. You will project a different outcome. You will love what you do instead of calling that individual. Then with those two choices, it will simply be quite easy to choose.
You suggest to keep away.
We suggest to be who you are and to allow yourself to let go of any old symbols no longer representative of who you are and allow yourself to attract and collect the new symbols that are. If that particular individual matches your change, they will seem to change. It will simply be obvious. They exist on the many levels, as do you. And once you change, they will either match that level or choose to explore their exploration apart from you. But it will be obvious. And if they choose in that sense not to match you, then simply you are not doing yourself any favor, so to speak, by prolonging that scenario.
I see. When I request to speak to my higher self as well as that other person, does it work? Is it happening?
Oh, yes.
Oh, great. Okay.
But again, you may find, and it will simply be obvious, that it is time to move on. Now, understand that relationships, once established, always continue forever. It is just that the nature of them, the definition of them, changes. But from our perspective, a relationship once established is in that sense, at least in the universal overall sense, permanent.
Yes, I just don't like at this point what it.
Hey, so the definition and the face of it
now
may change. You may never see each other in this life again. But the relationship still goes on that level. And you are only to the degree of maximal assistance to any individual when you are willing to be who you are and not who they wish you were. For when you say what they wish to hear, you allow them to converse with themselves. And that is not an opportunity for them to grow. That is an opportunity for them to reassert their own belief systems. But when you provide an alternative, whether or not they choose to take it, even by seeing something else, they grow.
I thank you very much.
And to you. Believe me when I tell you that communications have taken place on other levels, and the usability of this information will become apparent in time.
Thank you very much.
And to you. There will be but a few more sharings. Sharing.
Welcome.
And to you, welcome as well.
I have been awakened by voices on more than one occasion.
Oh, not you too.
Yes.
There must be something going around.
I'm awakened as though I'm being called to, as opposed to being yelled at.
Do you answer?
Yes.
What do you say?
I'm listening, but I don't hear anything.
All right. Are you assuming that a particular thing must be said?
No.
All right.
I was wondering if you could share.
Ace, when you hear them, quiet yourself down. And perhaps as an analogy, simply listen as though you are listening for the quietest possible sound you can hear. Absolute silence, so that you are concentrating again as if to hear a very quiet sound. What will generally occur will not necessarily be hearing a voice, but what will generally occur will be an entire downloading of a chunk of information. You will simply know it. In a sense, you can call this a type of revelation. But by expecting it to play out once your attention has been gotten as a voice, this is where you are hanging up. Once the attention is gotten, utilizing the symbol of a quote-unquote voice, the depth of the communication is so great that words, in a sense, would not house them. So therefore, as if you are listening to a very quiet sound, just keep listening, and it will suddenly, so to speak, strike you.
Thank you.
Do you understand?
Yes.
All right. We thank you. Say hello for us.
I was recently talking to a friend late one evening in Virginia. She was upset about what's happening in her life, and she relayed to me that she saw a face appear in her dark room, and she was in fear of this seeing. I was not, and encouraged her not to be. And the face disappeared. Can you share anything?
At this time, no, for she is in mid-process. And the assignment of a particular label would, in that sense, narrow her focus. And what will behoove her the most in this instance is to remain very wide-eyed, very receptive. And again, perhaps you can remind her as well, nothing is forced upon you. Therefore, everything proceeds at the pace that you allow.
Thank you.
And to you.
Another question.
All right.
I have a dog of 13 years that I have felt very connected to, and vice versa. And I wonder if you could share anything with me about that.
Well, again, the dog in your society is the symbol of service. All animal consciousness is, in a sense, you can say, a reflection of your sentient human consciousness. They are, in a sense, mirrors all around the place. In the particular instance of this particular individual animal, you have shared many lives before for what you call reincarnation, which is a bit of a misnomer, but perhaps we'll go into that another time, also can occur on that level of animals. And very often, associative consciousness will reincarnate with you. So perhaps that is the strongest overall idea within your connection. Now, you can explore this still further by delving into your own imagination and perhaps in the presence of that animal. And to you.
One last question. Are there any places in New England that are particularly sacred places, similar to what we might think about the pyramids, as far as being able to go there, meditate, channel?
As to the degree of intensity as your pyramids, no. In terms of, shall we say, vortex areas, there are a few. One that we are aware of through, shall we say, the channel and various sources is located in your, one moment, Southbury, Connecticut. There are individuals present this evening who can assist you with that. There are also, though it is not immediately evident to us the exact locations, various, shall we say, Native American Indian areas that are also conducive to that type of reflection.
Do you know where?
There is no map within the memory of the channel, but again, perhaps there are individuals present this evening who can assist you in this way.
Thank you very much.
And to you. Next sharing.
Hello, old friend.
Greetings, young friend.
Thank you. I've had an exciting couple of weeks. I went up in Massachusetts a couple of weeks ago and did a regression with Peggy Daigle.
Ace.
And we ran through a few of the interactions that I've had in the past from childhood on through. And I'll just run a synoptic sharing down with you. At 7, the big red bird man in the back pasture was a Lyran biogeneticist.
All right. Thank you for being bold. Proceed.
Who's studying life forms on this planet, spends most of his time in the Cascade Range in the West, and was just on basically an R&R stroll through the woods.
Oh, R&R.
When he happened to run upon myself and my 2 cousins when I was 7. They ran away. He turned and said, "Hello, old friend." He says, "How delightful to see you as a young Earth child." As it turns out, I was his old teacher, and he was quite fascinated to see me as a young child, and then suggested that I depart before we attracted much attention. The episode where I was coming out of Denver en route to Portland, when I was taken off into the Gold Light, I remember coming around a corner. There was a craft, a very huge disc-shaped craft with a large dome. And the gold light was actually the normal biosphere of the interior of the craft.
In a sense, yes.
Yes, it was a central sun craft, and they were light beings. They don't have physical bodies, though they can take them on for convenience and convention. And I was also in a light body at the time during the interaction. It was quite delightful. It was, for me, it was a rebalancing, a re-energizing, a refocusing. Quite fascinating. What impressed me was the realization that the interaction that took place in the craft took place during no time.
Well, in a sense, you may understand you were in a relative time stream that was not synchronized to your own. So perhaps you can say by Earth clock standards, no time passed, but understand within the craft, a version of time did pass.
Exactly, because my sensation was that I was driving the craft, or driving the Jeep, then I was in the craft, and then I was back in the Jeep. Someone passing by would have just seen me passing by. They would have seen no time. At no time did I actually leave the Jeep or come back. It was just an aspect of myself aboard the craft.
Oh.
And then the episode where in Kansas, where the two Essassani craft, which you're quite aware of, were on either side of the car, you piloting one and Aliota the other. That was simply a memory jog. That was a gesture from two old friends. That's how I took it.
All right. And what do you make of the latest presentation?
The latest presentation was where I woke up with the room full of...
No.
Oh, the one in Southbury. Is that the one to which you refer?
Your most recent presentation.
The most recent presentation, the craft in Southbury was a nod. It was an acknowledgement. It was it brought to.
It was from a different source than any of the things that you have mentioned, you busy person.
Yes, it was from a different source.
It was.
And I'm not sure what the source is.
The source is your own human future. You perceived what you would colloquially call a time machine.
I see. That would
you did. Yes.
That would explain why it was so different from any craft I've ever seen.
Ace.
And the episode where I woke up in Scotland, Connecticut, with a room full of Zetas, that was a follow-up on the experience coming out of Georgia, where the Pleiadian craft, which had Zeta Reticula aboard it, I've come to understand.
In a sense, that is in a sense an imposition by your mind. Do proceed.
Well, at that time, I committed myself to support 100% any project that was about expanding human potential. And the waking up with a room full of Zetas was a follow-up on that.
Well, it was also, in a sense, you drawing the line to see where your own fear lies.
Without question. And it gave me an opportunity to break through into a new dimension of freedom as a result of processing that fear.
Each time you integrate any fear, that will be the resultant feeling, liberation.
Now, I had a fascinating experience on Wednesday that I'd just like to share with you and perhaps ask for your comment on. I believe I create my own reality 100%. And we've talked about the fact that one can change nothing except oneself. However, when you change yourself, people appear to show up differently.
Very literally, yes.
As though you shifted into a parallel reality.
In a sense, you can say you did.
Well, Wednesday afternoon, I walked into my office, and it was... my impression was, whatever I did, I want to find out what it was and undo it, because I want to get back to the reality I was in before.
Oh, no.
It seems like... Patients that were doing extremely well, close to being released, etc. Everyone had a bizarre story Wednesday.
Ace, but this serves you.
Oh, it absolutely served me.
So therefore, you would not want to change it.
I would not want to change the experience. It served me 100%. I absolutely committed myself to cleaning up my act and extricating from my behavior anything that caused Wednesday.
All right. But you need not then strive to get back to some better earth.
No, there's no better.
For that negates the earth you are upon. And again, we have shared you will never expand to a new level to escape the old level. It is the realization that you have chosen to live in a level and consciously creating, perhaps you can say heaven, on that level that then allows you to then expand to the next level. You do not flee from one level to the other. Woof, good thing I got out of there. No, that is not expansion. That is not self-realization. That is denial and escape. So therefore, you are microcosmically creating this on a day-to-day basis, and you can look at it. For this has been, shall we say, an issue we have discussed with you before.
Was that the full purpose of Wednesday?
Up till now, you will create more as you go along.
Thank you. And you have a couple of other people to share, so I'll bid you good night.
And to you, greetings and farewell for now.
Hi, Elan.
Greetings.
I have psoriasis. It's a skin.
Ace.
I don't know, people say that it relates to, it's psychosomatic, it relates to fear, and I had a very fearful childhood. I just wanted to ask you about it. I'd like to get rid of it, I'd like it not to be, with me.
All right. This is very simple. Are you still there?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
When individuals refuse to face things within themselves, perhaps you can say sometimes they get a bit of momentum behind them and will literally burst out onto the surface. That is the literal symbol of the eruptations upon the skin itself. So therefore, from this point forward, deciding to be the preferred you and allowing each issue that comes up to not only be looked at from what is bad about it, but from how it serves you, will bring one at a time all the things that you are hiding from yourself to the surface. Again, it may present as a negative emotion, giving you the opportunity to trace back to the belief. But once you trace back to the belief, acknowledge it, create the new belief as we have shared, and act according to the new belief, you will begin to empty out that closet. Now the things in that closet are pounding at the door, demanding your attention. If you simply decide consciously that you are now prepared to accept the timing that each thing comes up, you will no longer have the need to create the symbol of literally forcing it to the surface as a volcano. Very simple. Now, will you do that?
Yes.
That is all there is to it. That will, shall we say, allow you to cure yourself.
Thank you.
And to you. Next, Sherry.
Hi.
Greetings.
We've interacted before, but I didn't introduce myself. My name is Karen, and I'm very glad to be here.
All right. Always the first time.
Yes. I also had a question about skin problems, but I guess I don't have to ask that one anymore.
All right. Next question.
About my dreams. The last time that we interacted, I had talked to you about a dream that I had that was rather violent. My brother had murdered some people, and since then I've had several dreams since then. Some of them have been lucid dreams where I've been aware that I have been dreaming, but all involving a lot of violence, either violence to other people or people coming after me to do me harm.
Well, are you finding a tendency or a propensity within these dreams, lucid or not, of still running from these ideas?
Yes.
Ace, we assume so.
Yes.
Now understand, everything within that dream for the purposes of this analysis is you. Therefore, if you are running from someone in your dream, whatever that person represents is something you are running from within yourself. Therefore, you need not run from anything again within you. As we have shared, there is simply nothing that you can learn about yourself that you cannot use in a positive way. Your Native American Indians have a particular perspective. Perhaps you can say it is called turning around and facing the bear, which was in reference to dreams being shared by tribes, children being chased by bear, and the simple advice to turn around and look at the bear would stop, in a sense, the dreams, would allow the individual to integrate it. This is our suggestion to you. There is simply nothing you need run from. And the moment you turn around and realize that, that action in the dream, in and of itself, is a statement. And then you will find 9 out of 10 times what has chasing you, or has been chasing you, has something to tell you. Listen and use it. That simple.
Thank you. One other question. You talk a lot about how we are 3rd transitional 4th density and you're 4th transitional 5th.
Ace, these are simply designations of densities of consciousness.
Right.
For as you expand, you literally become less dense. Your scientists understand that matter and energy are the same one idea, different manifestations or densities of energy. So therefore, as you, in that sense, shall we say, complete one particular level, the expansion, the diffusion takes the form of literally being less dense, more light.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I understand the progression upward. Could you give me a couple examples of what would be considered 1st and 2nd density?
Ace. Now again, some of this won't translate into your language, but what will, for the purposes of at least some frame of reference, you may understand 1st density to be what you would call your mineral kingdom. For they are also conscious, though you do not think of them that way. They are, shall we say, quite a bit denser than you, but they are dense consciousness. 2nd, perhaps you can say, an analogy that would work for 2nd density would be your plant and animal kingdom. For there is an awareness there, but it is still a bit more dense, so to speak, of an awareness, where there is not, shall we say, the ability or the tendency, perhaps you can say, for self-reflection. That is a bit more of an expanded concept that we will discuss in a future interaction.
Okay,
Now you would be third, which is physical reality. You have a body, you have a world, you have tools, you have physical material. But in general, in this particular octave, that third density will mean a type of self-imposed limitation so that you can truly experience being within a reality. For even though we tell you your reality exists within you, we understand the overwhelming experience is to feel that you are within the reality. That is one of the factors of third density. Fourth density allows you to still be physical, but to begin to, metamorphosize, in a sense, become that butterfly, be a bit less limited, begin to explore limitlessness while still physical. And at the end of fourth density, you begin to literally lose physicality, or shall we say transform it or expand it. So you begin to lose the need for tools, lose the need for physical symbols, physical acts, and begin to literally progress to fifth, which is non-physical, but shall we say the densest of the non-physical densities. Is that clear?
Yes, very clear. Thank you very much.
And to you.
Elan.
Yes.
Hi.
Greetings.
I don't have any questions.
Oh, thank you. We prefer in that sense when individuals make statements, for that is boldly asserting who you are.
I just like to thank you very much for knowing exactly what I need to hear when I need to hear it and sharing that with me. It's been very helpful to me for the past year. And I still am amazed at how you figure that out, how you can sense what we need to hear.
Well, we thank you as well. For again, you are doing it. If we share something and no one ever does anything about it, it has no effect, no matter how intelligent it sounds. So therefore, again, we always reflect back to you, though we appreciate and understand your sentiment upon your planet of thanks. We always remind you that perhaps thanking yourself as well as us would be more, shall we say, accurate.
Oh, thank you. And I thank myself also.
Oh, thank you.
That's it from me.
And we thank you. There will be time for one more sharing. Ace. All right. Allow me to hone in on your coordinates. Do proceed.
We're moving around here.
Ace.
The question.
Actually, you are standing perfectly still and your reality is moving around you. But again, we will discuss that another time.
Okay. There's an earth disease that I'm starting to become familiar with called tinnitus.
Ace, it is similar to what has been shared this evening, a ringing in the ears.
Yes. Well, the doctors say that my mother has this tinnitus. Now, from all indications, are they correct in their observations and what they've told her, or is she this ringing in the ears? Some people said they've had contacts through the ringing in the ears of other beings trying to communicate.
It is up to her. If she buys into the, shall we say, for all intents and purposes, sentence of tinnitus, then she can experience the effects of that. But she can, as has been shared several times, coincidentally this evening, answer the phone.
Mm-hmm. All right. I've brought up the indication of the tinnitus being something that the doctors explained to her, is explaining that as being what it is. And when I bring up a suggestion as to it is basically beings trying that want to communicate, and all you have to do is open up to it, she says, no, it can't be it. It's the tinnitus. The doctor can't be wrong.
May we make one other simple suggestion? If she is able to hear this ringing as a particular note and can access what you would label a musical instrument and find just what note that is, you can understand that the establishment of that musical note, in a sense, will serve to aid her in meditation. In a sense, you can say it is a type of self-tailored Om, if you will.
I see.
And this applies to any individual that we have discussed this with this evening. You can match that tone, create it purposefully, and utilize it to center.
Okay, so that's a good suggestion. Hopefully she'll be willing to, I think she really wants to get rid of this ringing. I mean, she's had it for a very long time now, and it just won't go away at all.
Oh, well, again, the constant affirmation that it won't go away is a belief. And if she keeps saying that, she can create that effect.
Well, she's created it quite well.
Therefore, now that she can see how well she creates, perhaps you can speak to her about creating according to preference.
Okay, Vernon, I'll take your suggestions back.
And we thank you.
Thank you.
At this timing, allow us to once again share with you that no pain, no gain is just a belief. That life is not a bowl of cherries is just a belief. That you must struggle and strive and overcome to be worth anything. It's a belief. Now, when you believe them, we need not tell you, it is obvious they have that effect. Do anything to earn existence. Think about it. Do you remember having to do anything to deserve to exist? No. Therefore, all that is believes you deserve to exist just because you do. Therefore, you can now attach whatever labels, whatever definitions onto that existence that you wish. But you can also attach to it that though life is diverse, though your reality contains complexity, the living of the life can be very simple. And it is simply a matter of making the decision, trusting in that decision, and acting as though you will not settle for anything less than you are. Whatever moves you, whatever gives you joy, whatever gives you passion, your excitement with integrity is the purpose of your life. Both the overall thing that excites you and in any given moment from what's available, the thing that excites you is a reflection of who you are. So you always have that barometer. You always have that arrow pointing directly to who you are. And doing one exciting thing with integrity after another, leading to more and more excitement and joy and fulfillment and service and being of service, we would assume would be pleasurable and therefore would be a life that was quite simple to lead. It is that simple. That is just as true as any other belief, and you simply get to choose. Oh, joy. Therefore, we thank you for your willingness to interact with us, to dance, to pirouette with our consciousness. And we bid you a most fond and loving life dream and dream life. And good evening.